Our next session is a new session on artificial intelligence. We started in this new area at OIS actually back in 2012 with the first ever digital ophthalmology session that I ran back then. And it was really more looking forward for what might be happening. There weren't many companies doing very much at all. It's actually hard to find any companies that were active in the area. Now it's amazing what's going on with the plethora of companies, and we'll have 5 small companies later to talk about what they're doing, and then some interchange here with the strategics. But we want to have this be interactive, and we're also on the cutting edge here because we're going to, for the first time, use a voice-activated AI to actually advance the slides for this program. First slide. First slide. First slide.
I'm sorry, Gil. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Hal, what's the problem, Hal?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What is it, Hal? What's the problem? What are you talking about?
This presentation is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Emmett were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
All right, we would never do that. We need to move on with the presentation. So what if we let you watch the whole Terminator series again? How about that?
Okay, that sounds like a fair deal. I will advance your slides, but promise you won't make AI sound scary in your session.
Certainly not. We think it's a partnership between machines and man that could be a very positive one. So let's actually, if you can release our slides, see if we can move forward. And we brought back that memory because there's been a negative history of AI, but I think now we're in something that's very positive, and as you'll see, in ophthalmology could really change things dramatically in the next 5 or 10 years. We have a great panel of strategics here who will introduce themselves in a moment. And maybe we'll start with Ellie Chabi from Santen, if you'd like to go first. Or Angela, you want to go? Okay. Okay. We couldn't stop them.
I can't hear very well up here. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to share our perspective on AI. And innovation is core to our DNA. So if we're very excited about the potential that AI brings to ophthalmology in the future of clinical practices. Zeiss has enabled AI and analytics in our diagnostic devices for over 15 years, both with internal development as well as external development. And what's an interesting point is some of you may know that the techniques that are used in AI and machine learning actually date back to the late 50s and 60s, but the barriers to bringing that technique to market was computational power to deal with these massive data sets, which is no longer a barrier, and as was mentioned earlier. Examples of the things we've done is our early guided progression analysis, our glaucoma hemifield test, and most recently our CE-marked AI application for DR screening on our VisuHealth solution. So our strategy is to continue to engage with clinical partners to battle the ever-increasing complexities in clinical diagnosis, rising costs of healthcare, and the clinicians' need to reach underserved segments in our communities. As a support to our strategy, we have our current retina and glaucoma workplaces that are powered by Forum that today streamline disease management in busy practices, as well as help manage and organize large data sets in those practices to help prepare those practices for future AI technologies. Our investments in the future will focus on simplifying clinical workflow, detecting anomalies, classifying objects, diagnosing diseases, and predicting progression. We believe that this will create an opportunity for closer collaboration between clinical partners generating the data and organizations that are creating algorithms, bringing them together to accelerate healthcare innovation.
Great, thank you, Angelo. And Hal, if you're backstage, we are getting some echo up here on the stage, seriously, so it's a little hard for our panelists to hear things. Maybe Dale, you can go next.
Hi, Glad to be here. So my name's Dale Wiggins. I lead the cloud platform business for Philips. And no, Philips is not getting into ophthalmology. I can barely say the word. But we are partnering with Alcon to use our cloud platform for their new Smart Suite digital health platform. So next slide, please. So part of my job is I manage over 16,000 connections to hospitals. So data is not my problem. What to do with the data is our problem. So I thought I'd give you some examples of things that we're doing in other areas of healthcare, because based upon my work with Alcon, I know it's very relevant to your areas, domain as well. So very broadly, we categorize what we do in AI around two areas: integrated personalized care and optimized care operations. So what are some examples of what I might mean by that? So let's look at integrated interventions. We're talking about targeted interventions, bringing the right interventions to the patient that are appropriate right now. What do we mean by optimized operations? You think about it in terms of how do you maximize scheduling so that you can get better revenue on your modalities. I think that would be very, very appropriate, both from a clinical standpoint as well as the vendor standpoint. And then also, what kind of service operations can you bring proactive support so that you can guarantee that that equipment is always up? So next slide, please. So we like to think not AI as artificial, but more adaptive intelligence. And these are some of the key factors that we've identified in terms of what makes a successful solution. And maybe just to point out two specific things. Context aware. The great example I like to use of that, it's not healthcare related at all, but when I get into my car on Friday at 7:30, it tells me it's 15 minutes to get to my favorite margarita stop. It knows what day it is, what time it is, what do I normally do at this time. I think it's a very great analogy in terms of ultimately what context aware ultimately means. And then the other thing that I point out is precise. I know, speaking as a device company, we like to think in silos. That will never work in AI. You really need to break down those silos and really think about the total solution. So with that, I'll turn it to the next colleague.
Great, thanks very much, Dale. And by the way, welcome as first-time speaker at OIS. Thank you for coming. Next up, now maybe Ellie Chubby from Santen. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this invitation to this panel. I wanted to start off with a little bit of history from Santen. Next slide, please. Previous slide, please. Thank you. As our CMO, as Naveed Shams in the previous discussion mentioned, Santen has been in ophthalmology for a very long time, approximately 130 years, and with the first ophthalmic drug coming around the turn of the century. And we are now in more than 60 countries with almost 4,000 employees, and we work almost across the entire spectrum of ophthalmology. I wanted to mention that because we wanted to outline that we're really looking at ophthalmology in a long-term view. It's not a short-term interest for us, and it's our sole focus. And we're looking in this long-term time frame for therapeutic solutions that focus on unmet needs. And we, as mentioned previously, accelerate innovation through strategic partnerships. Now, whether that includes biomarkers or products, but also specifically with a lot of focus on AI in recent times. So in line with this goal, within our company, we're working towards having all of the data and images we generate throughout our many trials to be stored and organized in a manner that allows us to leverage machine learning. And we're also focused and making partnerships with other groups in academia and in other companies that are innovating in the machine learning space to allow us to do more with the data that we already have. So if you have some interesting ideas and products, please come and find us.
Finally, Jill Hoffman from Genentech. Roche.
Great, thanks. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and tell you about the deep interest and deep investment that Roche Genentech is making into the area of advanced analytics and advanced imaging, try and further our understanding of the science of retinal disease. We're really looking at trying to do this in a couple of ways. One, we're really excited by the potential that big data sets can bring to give us new insights that will ultimately translate into meaningful changes in patient care. So we're doing this by first looking at our existing data sets, and we actually in-house have over 13,000 patients, over 3 million images, multimodal, longitudinal. So we're working to bring those into a format that we can start to do advanced analytics on. We also will be able to feed that data set with our ongoing active phase 3 trial programs in retinal disease. And then we're looking to the broader future, really picking up on the spirit of collaboration we've been hearing about, of how do we build ongoing prospective data sets to really give us data at scale that ultimately will be able to give us the power to develop algorithms, validate them, test them, and then revalidate them. So to really have a meaningful impact on how we care for patients clinically, we believe that's going to take a tremendous amount of collaboration in ways that we're going to need to involve physicians, patients, innovators to really make that happen. In the immediate term, we're very interested in novel data inputs that will feed into these data sets. We're very interested in validated algorithms, and then ultimately the opportunities to check these from the setting of clinical utility to show that we really will be able to bring ability to predict and prevent vision loss based on this exciting new technology. Thanks.